Droids Canada Podcast. Please stand by.
Good. How was Chip?
He's Chip. Never met him before. Got a crash course. So it was quite entertaining.
Oh yeah.
He did me a couple of covers for myself and a friend, and also my name is Todd, by the way. I didn't introduce myself. Sorry about that.
Oh, hey Todd.
I have my friend here, AJ. We call him the Mountain Man. He's on our
right.
podcast as well. I'm not sure if they told you that we do podcasts. Was that explained or?
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Okay, cool. Because I don't want to make sure everyone's like, I was on a fucking podcast. I don't remember anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah. We've been extremely busy because this is the first year that they are, I guess, helping us out have interviews with people and stuff like that. So we've been flying around everywhere, and we wanted to meet Chip today, and I thought I can do everything in such a quick timeline. So sorry about being 17 minutes late.
Unacceptable. No, it's cool.
Damn it! No.
I'm just working in the studio.
Excellent. So is this your first time at Toronto Comic Con?
No, I lived in Toronto for like 10 years.
Excellent.
I've gone to tons of them. Yeah.
Well, Chip
I
had mentioned that...
haven't been to one in a little bit because I was a little oversaturated, to be honest. But I figure if I have a book coming out, it's probably okay to do one. And Tiz invited me down, so that's pretty rad.
Well, Chip had mentioned that you ended up going and working out of the studio that he had worked for previously.
Yeah, he started a studio with Cameron Stewart.
Yep.
And did you guys start your podcast already?
It's technically a re-recording, if that's okay. Unless you want to start somewhere. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't want to be giving away these goodies before it's like recording, but...
No.
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago, record immediately, because sometimes when people start saying gold and then you regret it later, you didn't have it recorded. So I just basically just start running. Like, if you ever listen to any of our podcasts, it's just like intro, and then you just hear us talking, because we don't even bother doing intros anymore.
For the longest time, he wouldn't actually tell us that he hit the record button.
Okay.
Until we started paying attention, so yeah.
Okay.
It's just completely free form.
Don't worry, if he would have said anything really horrible, we would have.
Well, I just want to say, so Chip started that studio with, who was it? It was Cameron, Tegan McLeod, Ben Shannon, Chip, and then I think Roberta was in there around the beginning when they started the studio, and I was part of kind of like the second wave.
Right.
With Ramon Perez and Carl Kerschel, Scott Hepburn, Kalman Andrzejowski, like all those guys. We all kind of came in, within 6 months, and Chip, Kagan, and Ben left, and Roberta left the studio, so we kind of took their spot. But I remember I used to sit right behind Chip, and he had a screensaver that was like. Just like the ever-changing photos of this blonde woman in it looked like her 50s. And it was like glamour shots. So she had like bleach blonde hair and a leather jacket, and it's like soft lighting, but like lots of lens flaring and like starbursts and things like that.
Okay.
It's just every time you went to the bathroom, it would start up, and I'd see these pictures of this woman. I'd be like, what the hell? Like,
you can swear. It's okay.
Yeah, we're perfectly okay. Chip warned us that you were pretty crude, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, it's pretty true.
That's okay. Our podcast is pretty
rough.
great,
so I was like, dude, it's been like 2 weeks. Who is this woman? And he's like, dude, that's my mom. And I was like,
oh. No.
I was like, okay, you're fucking the funniest dude ever. And so I got big brownie points with that first guard because I set Cameron up for a bunch of pranks that I actually haven't pulled off yet because he chickened out of them. Oh. But I will enact them eventually. But pranks where those guys like Chip and them, they're like, okay, Andy, you're crazy. So one day I will exact my revenge on Cameron Stewart for fun. It's going to be cool.
I could definitely tell you just from the 10 minutes we got to talk to Chip, he seemed very interesting to say. He's very funny. Because as an example, I'm like, I don't even know what I wanted for him to draw, and he's just like, well, and he drew a really cool raccoon.
Rocket Raccoon,
sorry. And he drew a duck. I'm like, I really want this duck. And he drew a Hitler duck for someone, which was
it wasn't a Hitler duck. It was Freddie Mercury. It just happened to look a little bit like Hitler. Yeah, it was no, it was great to see him, and he mentioned the one thing he wanted to actually pass to yourself was that he said "Hi, lover."
Yeah, it's exactly his exact words. And I was just like, well, this is the first time we're talking to him. I don't know how he's going to react to saying, "Hey, lover, how's it going?"
Oh yeah, we dated for like a long time. Yeah, he was my boyfriend for a bit. It was really sweet. Yeah.
He seems
A lot of like, hey, come over to watch movies, and it was always like Tootsie and Tu Wong Fu and stuff like that. It was, yeah, that's Chip.
Yeah. So I guess what brings us to our podcast is that you're working on a very interesting story, from what I
Oh, thank you
understand.
very much. Yeah.
Now I have heard of it, and AJ's really done some research on it too to bring me up to par.
Okay. Cool.
I guess you've also you did Swamp Thing for DC for a while.
Yeah, I did some work in the annual, and then it's so funny. I did like issue 17, which was like the climax issue of the whole 2-year run with Snyder and Paquette and Marco Rudy and all those guys, and it ran through Animal Man. So it was like Christmas time, and I think Marco Rudy moved over to Spider-Man,
Okay.
and Yannick didn't want to do the book because it was like the giant finale war scene, like the final explosion and everything. And so I got the script, and it was right before Christmas, and I said, like, hey, Yannick, you realize this is like the climax issue for 2 series. Like, why are you not drawing this and let me do the last issue? The denouement. And he's like, oh, too many characters, too much war. I don't want like that. I don't want to do any of that. And I was like, all right, man. I can't say no, but it was one of those things where I had like only a couple weeks to get that puppy out, and it was like my biggest shot because it was with Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire drawing, and I was it was crazy.
And any work is good work, right?
Yeah, well, my family was like opening presents and I'm inking and stuff like that. It was fun.
I do see you've also done Kill Shakespeare and Black Church and Friday the 13th. I didn't know there was a Friday the 13th series. I kind of fell out of comic books for the longest time, and I kind of fell back in with actually Snyder's work as well, is what kind of brought me back as a comic book fan too. So that's pretty cool. Let's talk about Southern Cross. I mean, it seems very interesting from what I've read thus far. It's like a sci-fi story, if I'm 100% correct?
Yeah, it's like a sci-fi horror mystery, I guess you would say. It's kind of akin to something that would have come out of 1982. It's very lo-fi. It has like a very old feel to it as opposed to, really far out sci-fi. It's kind of grounded and very claustrophobic and that kind of stuff. The ship itself looks like an old cruise ship, like it's like an old oil tanker mixed with, the Titanic and whatever, and it's kind of like our Overlook Hotel in the series, and the insides are all sort of like, pipes and, tight corridors and tight rooms and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
Version of the Love Boat in space?
Yeah, kind of.
That's kind of messed up and everything. Well, we actually have issue 1. We picked it up today.
Oh, sweet.
When we were there seeing Chip, ironically. And it's funny because we were like, we got to go because we got to talk to someone. Since we mentioned you, it just turned into like a 15-minute conversation about you. So that was a very fun conversation. And he's like, oh, don't worry, you're going to like him. He's, you guys crude. Yeah, well, you're going to get along just fine. And he just told us to make sure he said hi, lover to you. So I'm looking forward to reading Southern Cross, as it's currently like sitting like 5 feet away from me, and I'm hoping to meet you on Saturday. Are you going to be there Saturday?
Yeah, I'll be at the show all weekend for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We're going to be there Friday and Saturday. Sunday's still a bit of a maybe for us because of traveling and stuff like that, because we're coming in from Niagara Falls every single day. Didn't really think about it, about getting a hotel. What's your influence? What was your influence to get into comic books?
Oh, God. I mean, I've been into comic books since I was like, 4, 5, 6. I think, around the time when my dad split with my mom, he would take me to the secondhand bookstore in my hometown. Like, do you guys know where Waterloo is?
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
I've been there many times. My brother went to university at U of W.
Yeah, so Waterloo, in the Kitchener side, there's a bookstore. It's called KW Books. And it's the secondhand bookstore. It's still there. I went like 2 years ago. And if you go in, they have a comic book section that's like 5 shelves, like Like the whole comic shelves are filled with comics, no bags, no boards, all the paper's yellow. But I used to go in there like when I was like 4 and 5. It was really cool because when you go to any flea market or secondhand bookstore or any of that stuff, the only books you're going to find are Image Valiant books from the 90s, pretty much. Some DC books, some Marvel stuff from the 90s, but it's all 90s collections that people have dumped. That store in Kitchener-Waterloo, that stuff is from the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Nice.
Wow.
All those books. Now, they are trashed. They are trashed, but you're going to find stuff that you would never find. So I got into comics by reading like Creature Commandos, G.I. Robot, all kinds of like anything that had monsters in it. I read like right away. That stuff was like really, really cool. I started getting into superhero comics a little bit when I started getting a little bit older. I got into, I had friends that got into comics. You have similar interests, so they're always into superhero stuff. So, I read Batman, I read Spider-Man, that kind of Captain America. I read those books, and then I hit 13 in puberty and dropped all my titles, and it was heavy metal and reprints from Italy and France from then on.
Nice.
Like Serpieri, Druna stuff, and Manera and Mobius and all those guys. Because I was like, wow, these guys are like way better artists. I get a year to do like 45 pages, you know what I mean? And every page is a painting that takes 2 weeks. But as a kid, you're like, whoa, these guys are just like way better, and there's so many boobies. So yeah, I was done with superheroes right away, and it's one of those things with superhero comics that I'm like, why are they so adult? They should be for kids, and let the adult books be for adults. I don't know. Maybe maybe kids are still into it. Maybe they just skewed it a little older for trying to get some of those 12 and 13-year-olds. But I don't like Batman having the sex with Catwoman in their costumes. It's weird.
Yeah, I have to kind of follow suit on that.
That's offside for me. That stuff's supposed to be for kids. And with the Joker cover that just came out on Batgirl, like, yeah, it's the wrong cover. It's Batgirl. It's for girls to read that would be younger.
I noticed...
You don't need connotation to when she got shot in the back and raped. Like, that's... And, Raph pulled the cover, and, my buddies Cameron and Brendan were like, that's the wrong message for our book. It's not hardcore at all. So, I completely agreed with that.
I have to admit, I like the cover only because it reminded me of The Killing Joke, and that's where a lot of people were upset because it was kind of like a familiarity of what The Killing Joke was. But to follow the point of, should this been on Batgirl? Probably not. I wouldn't have done that. But I mean, I'm not a comic book artist either. So
don't get me wrong. Killing Joke's one of my favorite books. Brian Boland is one of my favorite artists. He's like, I have like a collection of his Judge Dredd like strips that are like 5-6 pages long each. It's like a big book.
Yeah,
that is like a Bible for comic book artists. It's the most genius work ever, and his work on Killing Joke is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But I think they're really trying to go in a different direction, and it wasn't a badly drawn cover. Raphael's my buddy, and he's amazing. So it's the wrong message for the direction that they want to go with that book. If it was, I don't know.
No, but I mean, it's just like, it feels like nowadays DC is trying to be that more edgier comic book studio, whereas Marvel feels like it's trying to be more towards the kid type comic books, which is fine, but I think that for the time period that came out, not the best time. And on top of that, I would never put that as a Batgirl, especially because I just got reading into Batgirl maybe 20 issues ago, and it has changed where it's gone back, catered back to a younger audience. And I would never have put that on the cover. As much as I want the comic book, because I'm a huge Joker fanatic, I wouldn't have done that either. But...
I always thought that DC's characters were more for kids than Marvel's, because Marvel's came out in the 60s and 70s and had more of an adult vibe to their actual characters with more complex problems, and it feels sometimes like DC's characters are kind of like all the same dark brooding now. I'm like... Let's. You ever watch Brave and the Bold?
I've seen a couple episodes here and there.
Awesome. Like Aquaman's like Al Bundy. Like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I buy that comic like all day. It's really funny. You know what I mean? It separates the kind of characters, but instead you see Aquaman and he might as well be underwater Batman, you know? And then there's Green Lantern and he might as well be, you know, Green Space Cop.
You know, and it really feels like that right now with Arrow. It really feels like Oliver McQueen
Batman,
is just
with more diversity.
Correct. Like, I mean, it's exactly what it feels like right now. Even with I don't know if you're watching Arrow, but now they're doing a Ra's al Ghul storyline thrown into it. I'm like, this seems a little bit familiar. I may have seen this in a different comic book, but I don't know. Obviously, DC thinks it's working. I'm not going against it because I'm enjoying the show, but here's a good question for you, because what's the difference now? There's still a lot of comic book artists that are using print versus digital. What do you find yourself using a lot more? Like me, I'm still a print person. I have boxes of comic books, and I still love having an actual physical paper comic book. Digital, to me, when I look at that, it's nice, but then I can't say I have it at the end of the day.
I feel like kids nowadays, when the comics aren't really meant for them as much, will kind of like gear towards the digital more.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like they're going to be, you know, they want their handheld device in their lap, like their iPhones and their you know, DVSs and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
You know, it's kind of like you got to think about what would the kids want, because you need to grow the market, you know? You need bigger sales. So the sale, you know, I don't know if you guys watch wrestling.
Yeah.
But
Big
like,
fans, yeah.
Obviously we're in the PG era. Why did they go to the PG era? Because they started making way more money than they did in the Attitude era.
Right.
Right? Because now adults can take all their kids, the whole family, down to the arena. They can let them watch it on Friday night, and all of a sudden you're making way more revenue. Which is what DC should be doing with their movies.
Right.
You know, you don't need these hardcore, dark movies that you can't take kids to because, you know, they're superheroes. It's like, I'm watching this guy in a Batman suit. It just feels really weird. You know?
And as we were going up to see Chip earlier today, we were having a discussion about the idea of a Deadpool movie being PG-13 or rated R.
There's some of them that could work, and some of them, I don't know. I've had so many different debates over Deadpool being a PG-13 movie, and there's a lot of things that Deadpool is still considered PG-13, but if Deadpool is as gratuitous with the violence like it is sometimes in the comic books, that's kind of a line that they'll need to cross to. Like, back to DC, though, I mean, they kind of look at it as when the Schumacher made that horrible movie with George Clooney, Batman and Robin, I think it was. They're like, okay, that was catered towards kids. That was horrible. We can never do that again.
What's weird about that is, I don't know if you've ever heard the, I think there's a Fat Man on Batman on it, but you basically had like 4 or 5 toy executives like standing behind the director making the decisions.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. The third movie and the fourth movie were toy commercials. Like,
I can believe that now.
The toy guys were in the room making decisions. Like, not even like producer. Like, I guess they're in a producer role, but like, you know, they're like, they need to look more like action figures. You know, like everything needs to be more over the top. Like, you know, that's what happened.
Right, and I mean that explains, actually, when you put it in that perspective, that makes a lot of sense. Especially like Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. I can't buy that.
He's there for his name. It doesn't matter whether he can act at all. He's just going to be in this crazy suit that they're going to sell 1 billion toys of.
Right. Yeah. And then DC's like, well, then Nolan had a very dark Batman trilogy. That seemed to have done very well. And maybe they're trying to follow suit based off of that, saying, well, if Nolan can do it. And then they have, I wouldn't call it Man of Steel. I don't know what it was. I say massive destruction of a city and with Superman in it.
I don't even think that was Superman.
No, it really didn't feel like it.
Yeah, what makes Superman Superman is him trying to be Clark Kent. Yeah. And Clark Kent wasn't in the movie. Right? Clark Kent is this like awkward, weird nerd that's trying to fit into society, trying to get a girlfriend, but he can't because he's totally awkward because he has no idea how to relate to human beings. And that's what, as humans, we all feel like. So that's what draws us to Superman. As soon as you make him this crazy, cool, dark guy, and he's always cool, it's like, well, the character's gone. It's not Superman anymore. It's just this dude who beats people up, and we don't care.
And I remember I guess I'll say the fanboy outcry was to be the best word. When he killed Zod, everyone's like, no, too much. And I was like, well, in the movie, it made sense to the scenario, but would I have done it? No, but...
From the character of Superman?
From the character of Superman, no. But even people are like, well, Christopher Reeves wouldn't do that. I'm like, well, Christopher Reeves Superman is a completely different, the more believable Superman out of them all, because he played more into that actual character.
I watched the first two Supermans with Christopher Reeve again, like 2 months ago. I think it was on Netflix at some point.
Yeah.
And I was like, these movies are awesome. These movies are so good and so fun and so funny. And Superman is amazing, and he's so awkward. You know, when he's with Lois Lane and just trying to be cool, but he can't. Like, that's what Superman's all about.
Yeah, and Christopher Reeves nailed it. You can't even. I could almost say that what's his face when they did Superman Returns wasn't too bad, but he played more of.
Oh, Brandon Routh.
I need to be more like Christopher Reeves to be Superman. Who was that again?
Brandon Routh.
Brandon Routh. He's like, I need to learn to become Christopher Reeves, then I can be Superman, because he looked to me almost identical to Christopher Reeves and same mannerisms and stuff. But there's a kid, so that's a whoops.
Yeah, it was weird. That part of the script was like, well, why did you do that? Like, to show that divorce happens, kids. So stop crying about it. Like, Jesus, let's give these kids a reality pie here. Let's make them eat this. Like, divorce is real. That's like whatever director. He's got daddy issues and he's left his mom. So we're gonna hit this. We're gonna hit this nail on the head. Like, give me a break. Silly. But anyway, so. Yeah, so Southern Cross. I'll go off.
Oh, DC fan splurge.
Yeah.
One thing you will find, we have a horrible thing about being sidetracked and getting off topic.
Ditto. Yeah, me too.
Which is all good, but no, everything looks really good with the idea. Sci-fi horror. Absolutely love the idea of sci-fi horror.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I think the thing is, there's not a lot of it, and there's not a lot of good sci-fi horror. So the thing with what we're doing is we're trying to tell kind of like Becky's trying to tell sort of a little more like classic tales inside this sort of like sci-fi universe that's like all lo-fi, and the costumes are all sort of there's tech all over the costumes, and I'm thinking about Mobius and Blade Runner and early 80s movies when I'm doing a lot of this stuff. I follow all these blogs that have antique computers from the 80s, and so if you see the computers, they're all like from 1982. They're like terrible.
I mean, at least it's something that I can relate to me as a person, because I mean, I really, that's awesome. I don't know why. I think all the best movies came out of the 80s and 90s, and to see stuff like that, it's a good way to bring me back in. But AJ here actually probably hasn't owned a comic. When's the last time he bought a comic book? What year?
It's been a couple years, actually.
And the first thing he did is when he went and grabbed this comic, I'm like, this is what we're talking tonight. He's like, all right, go and grab a comic
Absolutely.
book. So I think you might have
cool.
him.
So your first in the year. That's right on.
Yeah. The one, actually, as I was kind of just doing a little bit of background and checking up on the studio and you and Becky and Carl and Serge, the funny part is I actually went to school with Carl.
Oh, no way!
Yes.
In where is it, Niagara Falls or
Welland specifically?
Welland,
I went to high school with him, and I was closer in age to his brother. But
okay, yeah, Brendan too.
I'm sorry.
Or Matt? Did you know Brendan or Matt Forsyth?
Matt Forsyth. Yep.
Yeah,
Brendan.
yeah.
I'm trying to think. Well, there was a couple of Brendans, but
yeah, Brendan Fletcher. So he's the one that writes Gotham Academy.
No
with
way.
Becky. Yeah, same one. Yeah.
This world is too small for us today.
Like, I knew
Carl and Brendan had been attached at the hip since high school.
Yeah, I know he was always big into art. Like I say, I was closer to his brother in age, and I went through more grade school with Kurt. But I knew he was always big into art, and I'd heard of some of the things he'd done right in that era. And to find it full circle and come back, and it's like, oh, we're going to have a call with you, and what, Carl? What?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. I'm
well,
like,
Carl,
how is that
Carl
happening?
left. Carl's in Egypt.
No, Carl's in...
No, Trinidad. He's in Trinidad, and Serge went home. All these guys leave at like 4 because they have like 2 kids each. So they all leave early. I'm the only one that like stays late. Yeah.
Well, we won't keep you too much longer. But back to like Southern Cross, like I mean, you got him sold, and that trust me, there was like we used to do this prank on AJ because we go to the comic book store every Wednesday because obviously it's New Release Wednesday, and we go there, and for 3 months he did not buy a single thing for 3 months.
Okay,
it's like there's nothing here. There's nothing here.
I would look. Yeah,
he would look, and he would find all these giant books. What was that one?
It was it was a 2-volume ElfQuest.
ElfQuest. I'm like,
Oh yeah, cool.
Well, it was just one that I'd grown up with, over the years, and it's like to see it in one massive volume as opposed to buying all the issues.
That's really funny because Carl will talk about ElfQuest all day. I think Becky will too. I think Becky knows a lot about ElfQuest.
Nice. Then finally,
not as much as Carl. Carl knows a lot about ElfQuest. It's pretty crazy. So.
I still have the orgy issue.
The orgy issue, yeah. Do you guys have any questions for Becky? She's standing right here.
I didn't even know she was there. I didn't even know she was there. I kind of feel bad because there she is.
Yeah.
Right, I was over there.
So I don't have my webcam set up on this specific computer. Of all computers, the one that I record everything on doesn't have a webcam. I'd like to thank Dell for that.
He fails.
Dell.
But the point I was making is that he's never. We went every day, and he just never would get a comic book, and now it's like done.
Yep.
They didn't even think about it. He's like, yeah, we're pretty much getting a subscription at this point. I'm going to be getting this bad boy all the time because he just read the write up. So
cool.
That goes for a lot. If you knew AJ, you'd understand because it goes for a lot because he doesn't just pick something up for the sake of picking something up. It's got to really get him. So obviously, if he's going to be sold, I'm going to be sold too.
Yeah, cool.
Which is pretty awesome. Is there, maybe I can ask both of you, is there any a character out there that you've always aspired to maybe work on, as an example? Like maybe, I'm not going to say Batman, because everyone in this world probably wants to do Batman, whatever.
Well,
Roadhouse. I want to do Roadhouse comics.
Roadhouse.
Lethal Weapon.
Good pick.
I would do a Silver Surfer comic.
Silver Surfer. Like if you're going to do a superhero, I would do Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Can you
that's
fix the
my one.
franchise after Nicolas Cage
I have
ruined
a
it?
story. I have a story, and I keep telling people at Marvel, and they just like kind of like, yeah, whatever, Andy. I'm like, one day you'll get my Ghost Rider. One day you'll see,
They'll realize it all makes sense now.
Ghost.
Tradd Moore is pretty good.
He's amazing.
Yeah, it's just I think they changed the character all up.
Yeah, but it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's. I haven't read it yet.
Honestly, I haven't read a Ghost. I have like the first series of Ghost Rider comics. It was like one of the first things. I'm like, this character is so badass. I have to pick it up. So I started picking it up, and then I just fell off of comic books. I'm like, oh, they made a movie. Oh, Nicolas Cage is in it, and that's the end of Ghost Rider.
Yeah. Why? But there is a part where there's this like girl who's being interviewed after she sees Ghost Rider.
Or the goth
and
chick?
she's like a goth chick, and she does like one of these. That's like my favorite. That's our favorite part of the movie. Like,
What the fuck?
it's our gang sign. We like rewind that part and watch it over and over because she's hilarious.
So when we see you guys at the con, is that what we're going to be doing to you guys?
What's
Throwing
that?
gang signs
We'll
across.
be throwing gang signs. I'm like, I think those are the guys from Droids Canada. How you know? They're throwing gang signs at me.
Yeah. That was actually. There was a guy in Thought Bubble who dressed like Ghost Rider, and I went up behind him in like a photo bomb. I was like, "Take a picture of this guy," and then I ran behind him and was like, and like, I don't think anyone when I posted it, no one got it except Becky. Like,
That's great.
like it was like that was funny. Yeah,
That's awesome. Like
It was worth it.
it was totally worth it. Yeah,
I do.
Well, I think
actually
you'll be excited by the series. It's pretty cool. It's not like. It's not. You're not going to see like crazy blood and guts. That's not the kind of horror story we're talking about. Like I think we're trying to make a story that's actually scary.
Well, yeah, when you think about like the science fiction and horror genre, it's not something that's been around for a very long time. It's relatively new in the scope of like storytelling.
yeah.
When you think that we as a species have been telling stories since the dawn of time.
Well, especially in print and comic.
Yeah.
Movie, you have things like Aliens, that whole series.
Yeah, well, even like cave paintings going back all the way and like oral stories that have been passed down. Science fiction horror has been like a kind of very new genre, I would say, since like the turn of the century.
It's funny because I actually started. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw my hat in there because I do like sci-fi horror. So I picked up the last run of whatever Aliens was. I think I started, and it was horrible.
Fire and Ice?
Yeah, it was horrible. Like,
Yeah.
it got away from what Aliens was. Well, most of the franchise did too for the longest time.
They're showing you everything. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Like, if you play the new video game, like, you barely see the alien because he's hunting you, and you can't see him because he's hunting you and hiding, waiting to kill you. That's
And you realize there's only one.
Yeah, that thanks for ruining it because I actually was playing that game like done. I can't play this because it's fucking anywhere, and I took it back and he's like, dude,
Yeah.
there was only one alien. I
That's
was
it.
like, what?
Oh yeah, there's one alien, and it gets like super scary. Yeah, and the new Silent Hill is even scarier.
That was a morbid series.
Oh yeah, I played the
can't
demo.
even- I couldn't even play it.
That's a lie. I didn't play the demo. I watched my friend play the demo, and I was terrified. Like I was just like freaking out the whole time. It was so scary. But they're gonna start making games that are really scary, and when they put them under your VR head, oh
yeah.
man,
Oh yeah,
that's
you
gonna
can't
be
escape it now. You're gonna
freaky.
crash the helmet.
yeah.
I
that's
like watched
gonna
this
be
YouTube video of this guy playing the Silent Hill teaser, and then when something jumped out, he screamed like a girl. It broke new notes I've never heard in my life. And I'm like, if this is what it's going to be like, because I remember seeing the trailer for it, and it's like, Silent Hill's coming back. You're like, yes, and it's like, it's being written by Guillermo del Toro. Like, okay, I like this idea. It's like, and Norman Reedus is in it. You're like, really? I need to play this. And then they put up a trailer called AJ doesn't know, so PT, and you're like, what the hell does PT mean? Playable teaser.
trailer. Yeah.
So then you play this game. You're like, no. I like sleeping.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
That PT was so scary. Like going in, you know, they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be scary," and I was like, I was scared when I played Silent Hill 1 a little bit. Like, I didn't want to do it by myself, so I had a friend over. This was like there was 6 of us in the room, and we were all like terrified. Like everyone was like, "Stop playing, man! Stop playing! Just stop playing! This is terrible. This is the scariest thing ever." And then he that's when we first played Alien, and he kind of like went through it, and it was like totally freaky. But I mean, that's sort of what we're going through. You know, it's the fear of the unknown that we're really trying to capture.
And like it just it sounds like that you're going to make the comic book a little bit claustrophobic, like the way how you're going to be drawing it and everything to that effect, which is kind of like I really enjoy that Aliens game. To get back to it, what really scared the shit out of me in that game is how claustrophobic it made you feel because the corridors were tight and it can come from anywhere, and it had a good story, and I don't care about as much about the gore and the guts and the graphic and the nudity.
That kind of stuff ruins it a little bit.
It can. Sometimes it can help certain movies, but it especially has no storyline. Like if you went and seen Shoot 'Em Up, that was a movie of Clive Owen years ago. That had no story whatsoever, but you watched a person murder people with a carrot, and you couldn't
Monica
stop laughing.
Bellucci was in it. Monica Bellucci's in it. I'll watch any movie with Monica Bellucci.
But I mean, when I pick up a comic book, I want a solid story, and I've given a lot of different series different shots, and it just feels like the story always falls short. Even with some of the Deadpool comics I read, I'm like, oh, that was boring.
Yeah,
So-
I don't think I've ever read a Deadpool comic.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
You just hurt his
yeah,
feelings.
plenty of cover.
Oh, I'm okay.
Yeah, I've never read it. It's kind of like the opposite to some of the stuff I dig.
Yeah.
It's been off screen.
Okay, yeah, you can do that. So you know he's so like in your face, swearing in your mouth, and cutting all your parts off, and then it's so over the top that I get kind of like I don't know, I'm kind of bored.
I can agree with that. I mean, that's one thing about Deadpool, and this is the only credit I can ever give him, is that you can put Deadpool in any situation you can magically make up, and it will still make sense at the end of the day, because that's the type of his character. His character is extremely over the top. But when I read like graphic novels and like big thick stories, I want a good story. And from what I've read so far of Southern Cross, this is going to be the story that I want to read because it has a very good story attached to it. So I mean, you got him, you got me. We're gonna like promote
Yeah, I
this
think
for
you guys are gonna like it. It's fun. I'm sort of like in the 3rd issue now, and there's some like really cool scenes that I'm working on, and
Nice.
yeah, it's creepy, but there, you know, sometimes Becky throws some funny stuff in there
That's
to
okay.
like alleviate.
I got
Yeah.
to play to Andy Strangson. He's got he's got a sense of humor in his art that I don't necessarily know if I have quite as much. And so I try to play to that. I try to imagine what would Andy draw that would be hilarious, or what would he... I know Andy pretty well. We've known each other for years and years, and try to think about what he would think is funny. And, you know, we have a similar sense of humor, so I think it works.
Well, from what I've read is that you two had been wanting to work together for quite a while.
Yeah.
And he approached you about the book?
He did.
Yep.
He did. A year ago, actually. He was
And up until now, you had never written a book before. Is that correct?
No, well, I wrote Gotham Academy.
Okay.
So that's the other book that I'm working on. And then I was doing, I did a bunch of short stories, and one of them won an Eisner Award a few years ago.
Oh,
So I've been doing some writing here and there, like dabbling in writing, I guess.
Okay.
Trying to build up my chops. But this is the first thing I'm writing for someone, like an ongoing, for somebody else.
Gotcha.
So it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, we're going to be on this a while.
Yeah.
In for the long haul.
You got it.
Yeah.
You won't hear a complaint from us, that's for sure.
No, not at all.
So if you guys are in for the long haul, we definitely are as well. So we'll definitely make sure that we will promote this as much as we can on our website, social media, and all this stuff like that. Anything we can do to get people to pick up this comic book, we will try our hardest to make sure it happens.
Awesome.
Awesome,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you.
It's no problem at all. We're out of time. I want to thank you guys for both being on the show. I mean,
Yeah,
I had no idea. I'm sorry, Becky. I did not even know you were there. So
No, I didn't want to interrupt. I was like,
that's fine. That's
I was
fine.
just working over there. I have a space on the other side over here.
Definitely. Anytime you guys want us to do any type of promotion, stuff like that, please feel free, reach out to us. We will be more than happy to help out. And we're going to be looking for you guys on Saturday because we're going to have some comic books that may need signatures, possibly.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, of course.
Nope.
We'll be sure to throw you some gang signs before we walk over there.
That way you'll know who we are, yeah.
Love that. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for being on our podcast. It means so much, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Thanks for listening to the Droids We're Looking For podcast. Stay tuned for next week's podcast.
Remember, the Force will be with you always.